Hey all, what are you at? Josh here. Super quick one, because I know it's bloody hot. Today's episode is part one of a conversation that I had with my friend Jim Martens. That will become more obvious during the episode, why I've called him that. And just quickly, my next stand-up set is with the Riverina Comedy Club's first Albury-based event. They've been kicking butt in Wagga for well over 12 months now. It could be close to 2 years. It's their first full-blown event in Albury, headlined by Bart Freeburn, MC, champion bloke that I met when they were here for a workshop recently, Dave Caneen. Also, we have Kylie Martin, locals Jay Fitzgerald, Oliver Hunter, and Tara Trewella. Ollie has been on the show before. If you've listened to that episode, you know he's pretty much going to be worth the price of admission alone. It's $20 at Beer Deluxe in Albury, in the room upstairs. I can't remember, though, what that's called now. It used to be the Crown Lounge or something from memory. And it's $20 entry. So Feb 6, $20. Awesome headliner, really strong locals, and a great MC. And from 7:30. So they always run a tight ship. So the shows are quick and funny, and there's no mucking around. So I'll be posting about that on my personal social medias during the week. At Joshua C. Liston if you need a refresher on the details. Part 2 of this conversation will come in a couple of days. My goal was to edit the whole thing in one go, but it's Friday the 31st, I think, of January today. So if you're familiar with the weather today, it's brutally hot, and my studio is just getting too hot. I could only do what I could do. That's more an old man having the sniffles.
I heard
just give me an old man sniffle.
Justin Chancellor did it on Triple J. They did an interview in like 2011 when they came over, and you could just hear his old man nose.
Was that?
And it was whistly, like it had a little bit of a whistle to it, and that's all I could hear. I wasn't paying attention to what they were talking about.
I've never been able to replicate the old man nose whistle.
Yeah, I've done it every now and again. Yeah, it's not good. I work with timber though, so there's a lot of dust in the air, and I tend to get quite a packed nose at the end of the day on the way home. And I pick it in traffic, for the enjoyment of the other drivers. That guy's picking his nose in his car. Yeah, I'm eating it too. A little bit extra protein, never hurt anyone.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, and they get that whistle. I do get that whistle every now and again.
And not to get too political about it, but is it old growth forest wood that's up your nose, or is it just pine? Or
just timber, just pine.
Okay, so it's just a regular pine nose pick.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, as long as it's not old growth, mate.
That old growth is bad for your cholesterol, mate.
Yeah, I bet it is. Right, so we might as well just get into it. Hello, everyone. I'm here with Jim Martens. We're going to get to in 1 second why I've just called him that. How you going, Jim?
I'm well, thanks, Josh. How are you?
Very well, and if, for anyone who's listened for a while, you might recognise Jim's voice from a previous episode. So we're going to talk about, just quickly, a conversation we had when I first picked you up today from the house that you're staying at in Albury. Martens. And I'll preface this with a little story. People ask me when I tell them my last name, Liston, how do you spell that? So there's two options. One is with an O-N and one is with an E-N. And then when I remind them that that's how you spell listen, they look at me blankly. So really, in my mind, there's one option.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So, but I think you have a much more sophisticated way of handling it. You actually preempt the whole situation of people mispronouncing your name.
Yeah, well,
misspelling your name, sorry.
The amount of times I've been in somewhere where I have to give my name and they're writing it down, and it's Martens. And I see them write Martens, it's INS, so I just say Martens now. Hello, my name is Jim Martens. And they're like, oh, this guy's fancy. I'm really not, dude. I was born in Moonee Ponds. I'm not fancy at all. But it's just like it, so I can get rid of that whole conversation straight away.
And it wasn't a whole lot up from there when you went the other parts of your life. I'm pretty sure there was some Queensland time and some Bendigo time. So Mooney Ponds-esque.
Mooney Ponds-esque, yeah. Well, probably Bendigo's probably worse. I'll probably just say that. Just cut Mooney Ponds right out. I lived in Bendigo for 12 years.
Sorry, Bendigo.
Sorry, Bendigo.
Yeah, we love you, Bendigo.
I do like Bendigo. It's a nice place. Yeah. It's a nice place.
So we may, at some point, probably reminisce about previous things that we've done together, etc., with podcasts and music back in the day, but we wanted to make sure we got to the main reason you're in town. I'm just going to have to read this because since one of my two best friends in the world actually organised the thing, I don't want to F the name up. And I was really freaking out about this beforehand, getting this right, and I kept getting it wrong. The Albury-Wodonga Fire Relief Fundraiser.
That's correct.
Was a massive event that's just happened a couple of days ago, and it was organised by Dan Caulfield. That's the only time he'll get talked about today, if we can help it. And I'm actually getting asked about why he cubs up so much, and it's just because he does.
It's Dan.
But this is actually about him. So he organised a multi-stage event in a local venue, the Victor Supper Club, formerly St. Ives. So on the Causeway, in my mind, a bit of a difficult spot sometimes for people just to go out to regular events like small bands and that sort of stuff. But it turned out to be about as perfect a venue and an event for that type of thing that they were trying to achieve as you could have imagined, just with the vibe of the two stages and all that stuff. So do you want to just tell us about what your involvement was and how that kind of came to be?
I had seen a post that Dan had put up on Facebook saying, I want to do something, I want to raise some funds and that kind of stuff. Who would be interested? And as soon as I saw that Dan wanted to do something, it's not even, you don't even think about it. When Dan Caulfield asks, you just go, all right, how can I help? What can I do?
Yeah.
And he invited me to come and play and said, what slot do you want? And I said, 9 o'clock would be nice. And he gave it to me. It was beautiful. It was great. And so I decided, I came up to play a show and entertain, I suppose.
So we'll talk about maybe, Jim, what it is that you do on stage for people that have never heard you musically. But did you have any idea when that post first went up? Because I think I might have seen that at the time. The scale of the event that you were committing to? No,
not at all. I thought it might have been maybe a one-stage sort of thing at a place similar to like Albion or something like that, you know what I mean? Just a classic gig. But that was almost a mini festival sort of thing, really. I mean, if you went all out and put a third act in the Spice Room, that would have been something else. And I think you probably could have done it, but that's the only other way that you could make that event any bigger than it was on that day.
So I actually was at the day job until 7-ish, I think, that day, so I didn't get there until a bit after that. But the event from memory started at 2-ish or 2:30 and then went through, it may not have been quite that early, but
it was 12:30 when it started.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay, well that would explain why Dan looked a little bit fried by 9 o'clock.
Yeah, he was a bit exhausted.
Yeah, he performed well with his cover band though. You
got to remember that it takes Dan more steps to walk places than it does for regular folk. So like he would have been rushing around all day like a busy worker bee.
And just a huge amount of work to look on top of things. There's a lot of looking on top of things when you're organising a festival.
Yeah, there is, definitely.
Yeah, over the tops of tables, moving chairs, etc.
People, children, things of that nature.
Yeah. Small bowls of chips.
His band were super entertaining.
They were. Yeah. And just to give them a shout out, Eggplant and the Giant Peach.
Yes.
One of the great modern comic names, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I still don't think I understand it completely.
It's for the emoji fans out there.
Yeah, that's up to you. That's fine.
Probably not the podcast to talk about that. Maybe Dag.
They were good. I like they played some cool covers. Played some songs that I liked and songs that I hadn't heard from my youth for a while and things of that nature. They were just super entertaining to watch. Basically.
And a selection of songs that Dan, who's known as a screamer and a heavy vocalist, could actually sing the clean parts to.
Yeah, quite good.
Yeah, so there was a lot of really good bands on and an eclectic mix. But I guess the way, and the reason was probably the main reason why everyone was in the frame of mind to just enjoy whatever was on. So you were playing outside, and unfortunately, due to everything that's happened over the last 3 weeks or 4 weeks, there really hasn't been a perfect day weather-wise since the end of December. Mm-hmm. That was probably the night.
Yeah.
You were playing outside and it was really pretty wonderful out there on this really well-lit stage and great sound. Just want to tell us maybe what sort of style of music you were doing. And
I was playing, it was nice. It was progressive-acoustic rock, I suppose you could call it. It's low-tuned guitar, baritone guitar, very droney sort of, but I had a stomp box where the battery was flat, so there was supposed to be a stomp box in there as well.
Yeah.
Sort of, that was a good slot though. It was just on sunset at 9 p.m. I can see the crowd, but it was, the lights were still effective and the sound was fantastic. It was great. It seemed to really, I don't know what it is about Albury, but my music seems to garner a bit more applause, I suppose. People tend to like it a lot more up here, and I do hear about it from people. I can play gigs in Melbourne, the same song, same gig or whatever, and people are like, yep, no worries, another acoustic act. But up here, people tend to, I think they like their arts a bit more.
Yeah. I think also the fact that you, over years of working your ass off, have morphed yourself into a really good singer now with a unique style. And maybe Melbourne, being the arts quote unquote capital of Australia, is so spoilt for extraordinary talent that every bill that you go and see is going to have a vocalist that will blow your socks off. Whereas I think Albury's still at the point where a lot of the most talented people around here find themselves not being here anymore.
Yeah.
They move away and become one of those people in a bigger city that's blowing so I think that people here really appreciate people that are good at what they do still coming here.
I think that the people in Albury, though, in general, are just... I've never met a person from the town that I don't like, or who isn't friendly, or who's, got manners and they're courteous and they're happy to have a chat. You haven't been to the Albury
post office then. Anyone who's listening knows exactly who I'm talking about.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, the most famously unnice lady, I think, in the entire town.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, so I'll leave that one there, but...
That's cool. I might go post a letter after this. I love people like that.
She'll be there on a Sunday. She doesn't care about Australia Day. She's there sharpening her nails for Tuesday morning. So, just back to the fire relief fundraiser. You were probably on that external stage, the last of the acoustic-oriented acts.
I was the last acoustic. Oh, no, there was another act, sorry. There was another act inside that had an acoustic guitar, but that was a band. But yes, in terms of solo, yeah, I was.
So the way that it worked for people that weren't there, that are listening now, there was an internal stage in the ballroom type of thing, which to me...
It's in that big dining hall, yeah.
Which to me feels more like something that, like a Viking...
Yeah, German beer style like, beer hall, yeah.
It's got that vibe to it. And that was where the full bands played. And I couldn't believe that... I think Dan's band might have started before you finished for about half a song. And it was so well soundproofed in there.
Yeah, I went a little bit over because I swapped a song out. I do that all the time. I'll have a set list and then I'll go, I might play
You decided to play a Tool cover that's...
of course I did.
Yeah, just one that happens to be 8 minutes long.
It's nearly every gig, nearly.
Yeah.
And that's, it's a good thing. It's a bad thing, I don't know. But yeah, I did. It's just, like my own songs work well in that, but the crowd that was there, to me, seemed mostly alternative, in their black clothes and all that kind of thing. And I thought that they'd appreciate something like that they would know. And it's not often that you do hear a Tool song covered on the acoustic guitars.
No. And it's probably, I mean, I don't think I need to tell you this, but I'm in safe company here. He might be 1A, 1B with Mike Patton for the most talented vocalist in any rock band in the modern music, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love the
So to do a Tool song, if you don't do it like complete justice, most people are going to hate you for trying.
Yeah, I know what I'm like when I see people play Tool songs live, and Tool fans are just like that in general. I don't think it's even a music thing. It's like, you better not fuck this up, man.
It's got to be 99% good. Yeah, whatever version you do, or they don't want to know about it.
But that's that kind of attitude that people should have to everything, I suppose. Instead of going, this is a Tool song, we've really got to try with this. It's like, yeah, this is our song, we've really got to try with this, or this is whoever's song. And really have a crack, like do it. If you're going to play music, fucking do it. You're going to tell jokes, do it.
Yeah.
Don't take your time.
So I'm going to actually have Dan in hopefully this week to give us the full roundup, and Jim and I were trying to get a dollar figure on what was raised, and that's still coming together, so I won't put that out there. And this might not even be out before I talk to Dan, so we'll find out how that's going to work. But you talked about telling jokes.
Yeah.
So this is something that you and I... It's funny, I think we played music for a long time and you're still doing it. And now we're both trying to do something completely different and I know everyone's sick of hearing this on podcasts, it's infinitely harder than anything I've ever done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's no standard to compare yourself to because you can't learn the song at home and record it and think, music's good, check. voice is good, check, I'm singing in key, check, I'm ready to go. You don't know if a joke's any good until you say it in front of another human.
That's right. The songs the same, similar to, I suppose, with a song, but you can listen back to it and you can react to it yourself, whereas jokes are entirely dependent on other people as to whether they work or not.
I think maybe what I was getting at was with music, even if you don't know if the material is good songwriting or the lyrics are good or whatever, or how people are going to react, you can kind of check off the technical elements. Am I in tune? Am I singing to pitch? Does the sound that I'm going for sound like the genre that I'm going for?
What's my key sig? What's my time sig? All that kind of stuff. You can do that.
There's some basic stuff that you can get right without any other human being actually hearing it until you perform it. I've had some stuff that I've tried at open mics in the last 6 months that I thought was pretty funny and decent and well thought out. Crickets. And the only thing that's been funny about it is if I've had a couple of good save lines that have just come to mind about how shit the joke was. That have actually been worth keeping.
I've noticed that at a lot of open mics where people will try a joke.
You don't want to do that all the time, obviously, because then people realise none of your jokes work, but it might be good to have one funny line that just comes to your head if a joke really sucks. And that's when you realise, to me, the moments where you're in the room with people, Sebastian Maniscalco and Bill Burr, the real personable storyteller comedian types, that's when you realise the moment. I had 1 2-second experience of what it must be like for those guys. They're completely
all the time
in the room at all times, and there's jokes woven into conversation.
I've noticed that at a few open mic nights that a lot of real big laughs will come from people who try a joke and then they'll make a self-deprecating joke about how it didn't work, or, well, I guess I'll try that one again, or blah, 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 or whatever. And that'll get a laugh for some reason.
Yeah.
But I think that might just be like a personality thing. Like, this person obviously doesn't take himself that seriously, or herself, or whatever. You know, women can do comedy as well. That's fine. I'm not trying to catch myself.
I agree. And I think that it's something that you only experience if you actually give it a go, is how in your own head you can't get ahead of yourself too much playing music, to me. Because you can literally rehearse that rushing element, or starting to think about other things. You can rehearse that out of your head by just practicing so much that your fingers and hands remember what to do, even if you're not thinking properly. Whereas I've found, particularly if you start to get a laugh, your brain starts going 100 miles an hour. To me, this is working. This is working.
Let's go.
They like that. They like that. They like that. And then you completely just get lost and miff up. Don't even let people laugh. You're already on to the next joke.
See, I'm still really early into it, so I don't do any crowd work at all. Because I don't want that, because I don't want to be distracted by that or anything like that. I'm trying to remember, and I write it all out, like the whole thing I'm going to say, like a script, and I'll have to try and remember bullet points in my head and then try and tell that joke, and that doesn't always work at all. Like, I told the same pun twice last Wednesday. Twice, and I'm like, why hasn't it worked the second time? Just because I didn't remember. So you got to be sharper. Drinking those pints that night, I thought I only had 4, and I checked my bank the next day, I had 8 pints. And the first time I ever bombed on stage really bad was because I'd had too many pints. So I'm thinking, no more booze on stage. That's the same with music. I play a gig after on too many beers and you're a bit sloppy, and you're like, okay, never again, I'm not doing that sort of stuff. But I'm not scared of dying anymore, which is really kind of a relaxing sort of thing.
Because I know we've hung out enough that I know you're a funny human being. And you're confident when you play music, to the point where you've got a lead singer's level confidence. When you said to me you were scared at one point to come back and try again, that surprised me a little bit. And then the very next open mic that I went to, I had half the set that went great, and the first half was an atrocity. Like, oh yeah, this can just come back at any point and ruin your night
whenever it wants to. And that's the thing. You can always, but like that. I think that ties into, like, my greatest fear in the world is embarrassment, being embarrassed in any way, shape, or form. Like, it's scary, and that can kind of impede a lot of progress and stuff with music, or with this, that, and the other, and ties into stuff like, imposter syndrome, when you're like, I'm playing all this music, or people are giving me praise for playing well or having a good voice and stuff, but I'm like, well, I don't know about that, if that's really me or not. You know what I mean? That can be a bit strange. But that's, you kind of got to just have a crack. And the comedy thing, it can come back anytime. You can bomb whenever. But the thing with me is I did an open mic at Death or Glory in Chapel Street last year, and it was pretty much just a room full of comedians, and all of them bombed. Like, we all didn't really get many laughs. Comedians don't really tend to laugh at other comics' jokes much.
No.
And so for me to see that happen was, I thought instantly I went, it's okay. It's all right. It's going to happen to everyone. Everyone bombs, and it's about how you get past that and getting back onto the stage. Instead of doing what I did, bombing and getting very embarrassed. And I had family there and all that kind of shit when I bombed, and not doing it for 5 years.
Yeah.
And then finally getting back up. And that was the first one back. I saw that, and now I'm not worried about that anymore. It doesn't worry me anymore. So now I can focus on trying to write good jokes and telling them, performing them in a way too. That's why I try not to do too much crowd work, is because I want to perform. Like, it's a show. You're performing. You're entertaining people.
Yeah.
And to try and that's where the voice and how you're timing and all that kind of stuff. That's what I'm in the middle of working out now. Just trying to make it nice and streamlined and fun.
Well, I can't see a future where crowd work's ever going to be something that I do regularly. And at the moment, I'm trying to figure everything out first, because I'm going off what my natural strengths are and interacting with complete strangers in a jovial way, like a light, kind of funny, light-hearted sort of interaction, is not something that I do on the regular or with any sense of ability. Is it becoming obvious to you too, like it did to me, why it takes so bloody long to get good? Even the remote, like even just to have one joke be good, that might take 30 seconds, literally takes months. And then it can be good, and then in front of the wrong person, if you say it the wrong way, or you're rushing, or you don't quite get it right, the same thing that works twice, 3 times, can be a complete disaster again.
It's very temperamental, I think, is the way to say it. It's just one of those. But it's the same with music, though. You spend all that time learning how to play an instrument and getting your gear up, and then touring and all that kind of stuff to be able to play that song exactly how it goes. But if you have one bad night where things just aren't right and your tuning's a little bit out, or your guitar's playing up, or you have problems with pots or whatever, and that can ruin it. But that's a lot of time for 30 minutes on the stage, or however long that song goes for. So I kind of understand that sort of thing from a musician's point of view, which is kind of a bit of I don't know, I wouldn't say an advantage, but it certainly helps. That kind of thing. But the comedy thing, it really hit and miss, and you just don't know until you get up and do it and tell the joke.
I mostly agree with that, but I think when it comes to music, if you're in a subgenre, like not a popular music genre, or you're not a country artist or something where you're playing to a massive swath of different types of people, you do have some idea of what the people are into that you're going to be playing to most of the time. Like, if you're playing on a certain show, you've got an idea that appeals to that lineup or whatever. That's going to appeal to a person that fits roughly within this box: prog rock fan, or alt rock fan, or metal fan, or punk rock, whatever. I think with comedy, obviously, is slightly broader than any particular one genre of music. You don't know what type of people you're going to have as a mix in the room.
That's true.
Yeah.
You can, in certain places, you could probably nearly do it. Like, you know that if you're someone like, I don't know, like a Kevin Bloody Wilson or something, you're probably going to do better in regional places like, Queensland and things like that than you would do in Melbourne. But on the whole, like as a whole thing, you have no idea what kind of people you're going to have in the crowd, And after a while, after a while, I've seen certain comedians will have certain members in their crowd, like Steve Hughes. He used to be in a metal band, has a lot of people who listen to metal who come and see him play and all that sort of stuff. And then they wouldn't be the same people, I'd imagine, who would go and see someone else, on the opposite end of the spectrum. He
has that brutal joke about, I think he was either in the band or in choir or something, and the football players were bagging him out.
He was in home economics.
Home economics,
yeah. And they're all like, "What are you, gay here?" And he's like, "Gay? I'm in here icing cakes with 30 women, and you're all have showering together." Like 5 hits or something like that.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's a quote. That's all over Facebook, that one.
My favourite Hughes joke is he does the one, I'm from Australia, the culture's really based in sport and racism, and I was not good at either of them. I didn't know what to kick. That's some clever stuff. He's brilliant, though, that guy. He's he had a hard run, though.
Yeah. He's kind of like almost more like a musician than a comedian in some way, because he has almost his own genre.
Well, he did play in metal bands and stuff in the 80s and stuff like that. Like, he's a drummer.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a hard run. I think he had like a nervous breakdown or something a few years back and didn't do it for a long time.
Yeah.
It was awful. But he's only just starting, like in the past year, I think, about starting to come back and do more shows, and his new material's just as good as the old stuff.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. He's a very nice, humble dude too. Like, I saw him at the Comics Lounge and afterwards, and I went up and said, "G'day, mate, how are you?"
Yeah.
And he was like, "Yep, cool. Got a photo." He was too happy to do that.
No, it's just
I
good
love
to know
people
that,
who do that.
Yeah, that he's, particularly because I think it's just a tough, hard business, any kind of entertainment in Australia, regardless what version of it you're doing. A lot of people just don't come back if they have some kind of derailment. There's a lot of people, in particular a lot of bands that I can think of, that had whatever hiccups they had and have never truly recovered from that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting to think about that sort of stuff. It's like Fields of Rain, my old band. That band was formed in 2010.
Yeah.
It was 10 years ago. That's how long we've known each other. But sometimes I think about that, and you got a bit of a black lung, got a bit of asthma. Sometimes I'll think about Fields of Rain, or I'll listen to the songs and stuff, and I'm like, this is a band that could have really gone somewhere. Like, they're just listening to that Genus, that beginning that we had was pretty cool. And I like to think about that. And sometimes there's a little bit of regret there, going, a couple of bad gigs and a couple of bad times, and that ruined that band basically. But you can't really hold on to that. Otherwise you end up, destroying yourself. You got to take the lessons that you can from that and apply them in different ways to the future.
Yeah, I have a problem with living in the past and the future simultaneously in my head, and having regrets about the past and fear of regrets in the future instead of being actually in the moment.
It's very easy to do that. Yeah, it's hard to be mindful and stuff.
Yeah, and which is why I think it may be why I'm enjoying, even though I haven't done all that much for it yet, I am enjoying comedy more than I ever thought I would, and maybe even more than what it looks like I am, because I'm not at the point where I'm a confident performer yet.
I wouldn't call myself a comedian even.
Yeah. Oh, I'm definitely not ready to do that. No. Just a person telling jokes at the moment.
That's it. I do a couple of open mics, a week, and that's it, basically. Yeah.
But
there's no more than that.
To me, it's because when I was playing in A Kendall Lie, when we first met, I basically composed most of the songs. Mm-hmm. So by the time everyone heard them, I could literally have played most of them, unless we wrote the parts, the extra bits in the jam. I had to pay a bit more attention, but I could play most of that in my sleep. And that meant that I could be playing in front of a crowd and performing, but actually be thinking about something completely different. And it quite often was that case, where I'd think back at the gig and think, particularly if I see photos, I can't remember our album launch at all. I was wearing a white shirt. I never wore a white shirt on stage ever. Well, clearly I did, and I played a Les Paul for that gig, and instead of playing just a stage guitar like a Schecter or something. I can't remember ever doing that.
Wow.
And it's because in that point in my life, I was just always thinking about something else. Whereas you can't literally make people laugh unless you're right in the moment.
That's true. I find that I have a hard time paying attention to anything. There's so many times when I've or I found something too late or coming to something too late, and I'm like, why didn't I pay attention to this? Why didn't I listen? What was I doing? What was I thinking?
Yeah.
I was more involved in whatever, I don't know where I was. So now I find I actively have to all right, listen to what this person is saying and pay attention. So, I don't know why there's just that ignorance sort of thing growing up. It was not good.
No, bad. You mentioned earlier, you did turn 30. That's a big inflection point of realizing that, well, for me, there's things in my whole life that I've known that I enjoy, that I never allowed myself to fully explore because I had some external pressure coming from somewhere that's not who you are. And one of the things is music that has a Celtic influence. Like, there was a lot of it on the show Battlestar Galactica that had a world music sound. And it always was the things that I would love when I'd hear a soundtrack or a movie score or things from TV shows, like theme songs. Those songs, that always appealed to me.
Yep.
And it probably wasn't until about 2 years ago that I allowed myself to start exploring this weird Canadian, Irish-influenced folk music that now it's 90% of what I listen to.
Wow.
And I would have been way too concerned about, you're the prog rock guy, Josh, not the Celtic music guy, because people hear that and they think party, pub, Irish bands. That's not what this is. But it's just those melodies and those choices of notes. I always knew I loved it, but I talked myself for 25 years out of being someone that listens to anything that's remotely folk music oriented.
Yeah.
Like, what was the fucking point of that?
Yeah, you're just letting yourself down because of something that doesn't exist or something that isn't important.
Yeah, and getting back to where you were heading, I think that I've always had a really strong attention span. It's probably allowed me to do a lot of things that I normally... Like, I'm not preternaturally good at guitar. I'm not even that good, really, even when I was at my peak. But I had enough actual attention span that I could sit there and figure some things out for myself to a level where it looked as though I was a pretty accomplished guitar player within my own little world.
Yep.
And reading lots of books and all those sorts of things. But one thing for me is that my attention is never really ever focused enough on one particular thing to be great at it or to fully understand it. I've got fucking 10,000 inputs at any one time, and I'm always searching for more inputs.
Just go.
And I very rarely ever output something that's of the equivalent of the inputs. Like, it's never focused. There's not an even exchange between how much information I'm taking in and inputs and sounds and whatever, and how much I'm putting out to the world.
Yeah. Does he have a bit of a sense of guilt for that?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bit strange.
Yeah. Like, I can listen to 10 hours of Joe Rogan in a week, faster than normal speed, so it doesn't end up being 10, but in half of it he's talking about writing jokes, and it feels like that's energizing me.
Yeah.
Oh, this is what real comedians are doing. He's talking to these people. He's had all these older guys on from Boston recently who are absolute firecrackers.
Yeah.
That's what it's like to build jokes from the ground up. And in that whole like, I've just been monitoring it more the last few weeks because of trying to distract myself from the fires and everything, really.
Yeah.
And I haven't outputted anything. So I've taken in more comedy-related conversation this month than I ever have in my life about the art of writing a joke and performing or whatever, and hardly anything's come out.
Yeah, right.
Except
I bet you are working on it, right?
Yeah.
You're actually doing stuff.
Yeah, the last 2 days, I thought, just stop listening to stuff and watching things on YouTube and conversations and just work on a couple of tags for these jokes that aren't finished.
Yeah. Or take the headphones off and actually pay attention to the world.
Yeah, exactly that.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I do like I have Bluetooth headphones. I love them and I catch a lot of public transport. It makes no sense to drive to me in Melbourne. The trains are so good. And I'll stand. I don't sit on the seats, but I'll stand and I just watch people all on their phones or doing whatever, especially on the way home from like an open mic or whatever. People are pissed and they're on the trains. I don't listen to music then, because 90% of the things that they're talking about are hilarious. If you've ever listened to drunk conversation when you're sober, there's gold in that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, I feel like you can only watch comedians so much before you start to emulate their styles or before you start to repeat things. And I don't want to watch too much comedy because I don't want to hear a joke, forget that I've heard the joke, and then come up with a premise that's similar later on and then realize, oh, hang on a second, someone's already done that sort of thing. So it's good to watch it for a bit of inspiration, and Joe I do, but I don't really listen to the podcasts that he does with other comedians. I'll listen to the ones where he does scientists or the set and people like that. But yeah, it's one of those things, I suppose.
It's funny, you've got the same concern as me, but I'm looking at it from a completely different perspective. Mine is, I'm so terrified of being labelled a version of someone else that because of getting back to my large attention span, my way to do it. Yours is a much healthier way to do it, by the way. It's just a lot pay attention. But mine is, I can take it all. I can know everything about every fucking thing in comedy that's happening all at one time because I've got the ability on some level to absorb it all and not get overwhelmed. That's how I'm going to avoid sounding like other people. But I'm terrifying myself into thinking, geez, is there any territory left to me? So I've already started to concern myself with something that's years away from taking in so much information and so many different kinds of styles and thinkers and watching so many specials. And the thing is that even Bill Burr said many times on his show, because people sometimes will ask him a question when they write in, and he's like, well, no one starts out pure original. Maybe besides Dave Chappelle, who came out of the womb as a comedian. But yeah, worrying too much if you sound a little bit like someone or have a certain... I mean, obviously you don't want to sound like, at the moment, Anthony Jeselnik or someone that's got that style. Like, his style is so recognisable, you wouldn't want to do that. But I'm still stuck in how progressive rock people think. That you have to be absolutely original in everything you sing about, play about, sing about, but it still has to sound like prog. Don't be a bad prog band, but be completely original as well.
Don't use the third and fifth fret and drop D tuning. That's the Tool zone. That's not for you. That's for Tool only.
You don't want to sound like that. And if you go 3 to 5 and then open...
oh, no. Don't chuck an 8 or a 10 in there. You're knackered.
No.
You're done.
Yeah, that's all.
That's bad.
And if you turn a delay pedal on, that's suddenly Carnival and Dead Letter Circus.
Yeah, that's it. You just can't do that stuff.
I think that, I don't know why in the last few days, but I've been doing a lot of thinking. Pretty much since that gig. Because the first time, I mean, it helped that I saw you and Dan and that performing, mates doing stuff. But it's the first time I haven't felt the slight pinch of regret for not being involved in performance.
Okay.
Because I feel like I've moved, my identity has shifted over into... I'm not the guy who regrets not being a musician anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Like, it was probably the first time I felt that way.
That's good.
Was the other night where I was just so happy for you guys.
You've been showering me with praise all morning about this gig, man.
Yeah.
You got to stop. My head's not going to fit out the door.
Yeah. But that's more about me. I mean, that's nothing about you, really.
Not really.
That's about...
That's me being conceited, isn't it?
Yeah,
I pulled a compliment out of that. You're just talking about your issues. I'm like, but I'm pretty awesome.
This episode was edited by Dead Set Podcasting. If you want your podcast to sound this good, check out deadsetpodcasting.com/services. Get the sound you're chasing.